Hey, welcome everybody. This is Pages Promotions. We're doing another episode of our summer virtual book festival. We're doing this all through the month of June just to bring more awareness to independent authors and really introduce you to them and to their works, and to give you an opportunity to talk directly with the authors. Today, we are featuring Elizabeth Wehman. Hi! Isn't this goofy? And her book is, let's see if I can get this, The Year the Stars Fell. And it's a new release, right, Elizabeth? Just recently came out?
Yep.
How long ago did you release this?
Actually, last weekend.
Wow. So it's a brand new baby.
Yes, brand new baby.
Fantastic. So can you give us a synopsis of the book? Give us an idea what the book's about?
The book is based on the first farming family that came into my county here in Shiawassee County, Michigan. They settled the area in 1833. They were one of the first families to come into the area. And the story is so fun. I really enjoyed being able to research it. That was almost the most fun about it, but they came from Pennsylvania, settled in the area, and established this little community called North Newburgh. And
so is this fiction or nonfiction?
It is
fiction?
It is fiction, but it's based on a true family that came into the area in that time.
Okay, so would you say that it's more fiction or more creative nonfiction, or
No, it's more fiction.
More fiction. Okay. So you just took the foundation of this family story and then you made up stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Now, I know you have other books. I don't have them with me because we're just featuring the one for the giveaway box. But can you tell us, I know you're on the road, you probably don't have them with you either, but can you give us the titles of your other books and a brief synopsis of them?
Yes, all of this is my fifth book. This is my first complete historical fiction. I have 4 other books that are, 2 are standalone and one is a kind of a sequel to another book. But all of them have Michigan settings. The first one's entitled Under the Windowsill, and it has a Mackinac Island setting. And it's just kind of like a coming of age story about a young girl that runs away to Mackinac Island and kind of just tries to find her way. My second book is Promise at Daybreak. It has a Durand, Michigan setting, which is my hometown, which includes, we have a historical depot in the town, so it includes a little bit about this historical depot. But the story is about 2 elderly sisters who are forced together by illness, and they make a pact at their mother's grave that they want to fulfill. So that's my second book. My third
book is mildly spooky. Is it mildly spooky?
Not really. No, it's if you have a sister or have any have any familiarity with sisters, they don't like each other at all.
Okay.
And so because of the illnesses of both of them, they're forced together because they have no one else to go and help take care of them. So if you enjoy sisters, that book is for you. I've had a lot of people that says, oh my goodness, this story is just exactly like how my sister and I would react to one another, especially with being elderly.
So the gravesite isn't a major component of the book.
No, it's just a pact they've made at their mother's grave.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And the next one?
And my third book is Just a Train Ride, and it's loosely based on my parents' love story from the 1940s. So what happens, a lady on a train as a passenger finds a young lady that's traveling too with her, and she tells this young girl her love story. So that's a fun one. That's based on a train, of course, Amtrak train from Chicago to Lapeer, Michigan.
Is that a trip that you've actually taken on train?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
In fact, on the train while I was writing, I was currently going to start the book, and I had my daughter on the train with me, and I told her, please stay awake. I have to figure out a great setting for this book, and she instantly fell asleep. And I sat there on the train thinking, I don't know where to do the setting for this book. And then all of a sudden, as I'm watching all of the cars stop for the train and all that, wait, maybe I could do it on a train. So that's how it came about.
That's wonderful. That's great. Diana, Michael, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Well, then my fourth book is the sequel to that. It's the story of the young girl on the train. It's her life story and how everything transpired before she took the train ride with Callie.
Oh, that's
my main
cool.
Yes.
I like the idea that you put both characters in the same physical setting.
Yes, and it was a kind of a reader demand. After reading Just a Train Ride, so many people were like, we want to know what happens. We want to know what happens, which I thought I tied up loose ends well, but I must have left a little bit more that people wanted more. So I gave them that book more.
So would one be considered the prequel to the other, or is it just a continuation of the story? So which one
Just a
is
Train Ride
the prequel?
Just a Train Ride.
And then the second title is?
Mere Reflection.
Okay, great. And that covers all 5, right?
Yes, that's all 5.
Awesome. Okay. And then what's your website real quick? We'll ask you to do this again for people who come in late, but what's your website so people can find you? www.elizabethwehman.com. Excellent. Diana, Michael, Lori, any questions or inquiries from you folks at this point?
I like the way you came up. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, are you having a special on your books?
Not currently, just because it's the latest one has just recently released.
Okay. Can I buy them from the website?
Yes, you can.
Or if I want them signed, can I contact you directly, or how does that work?
If you'd like them signed, send me an email to elizabethwehman@yahoo.com, and I will sign them and get them off to you, and it'll just be a little extra for shipping.
Okay.
Yeah, we're really enjoying having Diana in our chat rooms because she's satiating her inability to go to book festivals. And so this is how she's participating in a book festival this year. So we're so pleased to have you, Diana. Thank you very much for following us.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And thanks for all your support too. I mean, you've been great through all of our Zoom meetings so far and really supporting the authors, and we really appreciate that.
No problem.
Michael, go ahead. You had a question?
No, I was just going to say, I like the way Elizabeth came up with the train setting.
Yeah, it's a cool idea.
Yeah,
yeah. Have you found any other interesting settings like that, Elizabeth? Or have the settings for your books pretty much been from the original story? I mean, have you gotten creative with settings like that? I just read an article today that I posted on Facebook about how to incorporate different aspects of setting into your writing. So I was curious about, how, as an author yourself, how do you go about incorporating setting into the story?
My main goal with all my books is to make them Michigan-based. I love my state. I think it's a great state. There's so many unique places in Michigan. Mackinac Island was just a place where I used to go as a child a lot. So Mackinac Island, I really wanted to incorporate one of those. And being my first book, that was an awesome thing because I was able to put it in gift shops and bookstores all the way on the Lake Michigan shoreline and all the way into Mackinac City and St. Ignace and Mackinac Island. And that was really a great boost for my first book.
Absolutely,
that helped a lot.
Yeah.
The second one was just, like I said, like a memento for my hometown. There's quite a few people that support my career there, and I thought it would be cool to do a book there. Just a Train Ride, like I said, came about on just the train. And then the Mere Reflection was Lapeer, where that's where Callie, the main character of Just a Train Ride, that's where she lives. And Blaine, the lady on the train, comes back to help her because she has nowhere else to go. She's elderly, so that kind of fit in that way. And then with my last book, that was just a research thing, a freak research thing that came out about this little village that was started in Shiawassee County, but it doesn't exist any longer. It kind of dissolved in 1880. So I wanted to really push my very first historical in this regard, and that's how that setting came about.
That's pretty awesome. Pretty neat. What are the challenges you've had in writing historical fiction? I don't know a lot of authors who write in that genre. So I'm curious, for anybody who might want to pick up that genre and test it out, what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome writing in that?
I wish I could go back. I had a really hard time. This family came from Pennsylvania instead of New York. A lot of the early settlers came from New York State. This one came from Pennsylvania. The only thing that I could connect with that was they must have come by steamboat, because the steamboat in Lake Erie started around that time, where they would carry passengers into Detroit, and they would also be able to go all the way around the state to get into Chicago, and then all the way to the Mississippi River. So a lot of people started that way, and that's why there was such a migration from New York. So when I started to put the steamboat in the book, I had a really hard time researching what that steamboat would have looked like in 1833, because it was pretty much before the big boom of the steamboats were coming in. It must have been an earlier steamboat. So that was one of my challenges, was trying to figure out, okay, how did they put people on the boat, that kind of thing. So
well,
I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did contact a museum in Lake Erie, in Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, not Lake Erie, but off of Lake Erie, to see if they had any information, which they were able to give me some. But that was one of my biggest challenges for the book.
So where's the most surprising place, source, I should say, that you've found your research? What's the place that when you say, oh, I found this piece of this piece from my book in this place, where people kind of raise their eyebrows and go, really, you did that?
I did a lot of library research. There were two books. One was printed in 1888, and the other one was printed in 1904, that talked about the counties in Michigan and how they were all established. I had a lot of my information come from that book. I did go to the Historical Society and found the Shiawassee County Historical Society, and found quite a bit of research there, but they didn't really know a lot about this particular settler. They knew a lot about the area and a lot of other settlers, but I just kept seeing tidbits about this Baker family that kept coming out more and more in my research, and they were just little snippets about the family, but they were such unique tidbits that's how the story started to formulate in my head.
Right. Okay. So to remind everybody, this is the book we're talking about, The Year the Stars Fell. How long did it take you to write the story? Not from beginning to end. I'm talking about, okay, the first draft is done. Now let's make it a book.
Okay. Well,
that editorial to publish process, how long did that take?
About a year.
And then the first draft, how long did that take?
The first draft only took me 3 or 4 months, and I just pushed it because I loved it so much. I was so excited about this story. It came fairly quickly.
That's great. So the editorial process is what really took up the bulk of the time to bring it to life.
Yeah.
As well it should, by the way. That's the way it's supposed to work. Anybody have any questions for Elizabeth at this point? Yes, Lily, go ahead.
Yeah. 2020 has been such a weird year, and your title, The Year the Stars Fell, feels appropriate for 2020. And I'm wondering where you got your title. Was there a tragic event or something that led to that?
Well, that was kind of one little really cool research part about this. My husband and I were sitting watching television one night, and there was a documentary on about a meteor shower that happened in 1833. Well, 1833 perked, I was like, what did they say? And so I started researching this meteor shower that happened in 1833, and it was a huge shower. Like a lot of people felt like the world was coming to an end when it happened. It was in November, around November 12th or 13th of 1833, and they said people were outside watching. I think they said there was 30 meteors a minute falling from the sky. if you look it up, it's called the Leonid Meteor shower. It happens every year, but that year seemed to be significantly more. So I thought, wow, that's great. That happened the same year I'm writing this book about, and that's how I connected the story in the title.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Now, when you do the historical fiction, do you include any photographs or illustrations to help describe the settings?
It's hard to find pictures from 1833. There wasn't very many. I did put a map of the village, and the map will be will evolve because this is going to be a first of a series of 3 books so far.
Oh, fabulous. That's exciting.
Yes. So I started a village map that started with the first 2 families that came in, and then I will add to it as we go along into the book. That's about the only illustration I had in the book, only because unfortunately it's costly to put illustrations.
I don't know if I can do this effectively, but there, can everybody see that? So that's in just the first couple of pages of the book. Excellent, very cool. It reminds me kind of what Tolkien did with his map of Middle Earth.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. And by the way, love the little bookmark. Very cool. This is going to be one of the books that we'll be giving away in our big box of Indie Author Wonderment that's going out on Saturday. So anybody watching this video, if you're interested in getting in the drawing for that book, for Elizabeth's book and a bunch of others, all you have to do is go to our Facebook virtual book festival page, share a post. One post is all it takes, and you can get into that drawing. We'll be doing the drawing on Saturday at 7 p.m. So, and tucked inside that book is that little bookmark that Elizabeth gave us. So that's really cool. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's segue into, the reason that we're doing this virtual book festival is because with COVID-19 and everything, we haven't been able to meet in large groups. So my intention with this virtual festival was everybody can stand around essentially and talk to authors as they would standing around tables at a festival. When you do book festivals, you've done, I'm guessing, quite a few of them because you've got 5 books. What do you find are your best marketing techniques? What do you find are the things that you do either in display or swag or pre-marketing maybe to draw people to your festival table?
I think pre-marketing is really essential. I think for any book coming out, I think it has to be, you have to build the excitement beforehand. So I did a lot of posting about my research, which seemed to interest a lot of people. I did that on Facebook. That was huge for me to do that. And so I would do the same if it was a festival, whatever I was happening. I would try to build suspense and build excitement about what the event that's coming up with things on Facebook about, hey, I tried to get a pretty outfit to wear to the festival and I can't get it because, the COVID is happening and, you can't get into a store. So I had to do something, online. Just people love that kind of stuff, and it draws them into your abilities to try to get your book out there, even if it is just silly things like trying to find an outfit or, I was trying to find a book and I couldn't get in the library. That's been just a hiccup with this whole pandemic thing too.
Big fat hiccup.
Yes.
So when you talk about sharing your research endeavors on social media, and you talk about in preparation for the release of this book, for instance, what are some of the little, the reason I'm asking is because I know Michael is right now in the process of writing historical fiction, and I know he could use some tips on pre-promoting his book. So when you talk about the little drops that you do on social media to build interest around the historical fiction, how do you go about doing that? What are the kinds of things that you share?
It's a lot of things that won't fit in the book. There was so much research that I did that, I didn't use all of it to go into the book. So if there was something the family would have, episodes of, I'm trying to think of one. One of the daughters did kill a wolf their first year on the property, and so she actually trapped it. I have it that she killed it with a rifle, and so I'd go into things like, did you know that, you know, pelts back then in those days would go for $30. Like they would get, if they could get them to a fur trader that lived locally, it would go and they could sell it, and it would end up, you know, paying them $30. Back then, that was a huge amount of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those kind of tidbits that I probably wouldn't have put so much in about her trapping them, or did you know, she was only like, looks like it sounds like she was maybe like 14 or 15. So I can't even imagine a 14 or 15-year-old girl right now trapping an animal or killing an animal for a pelt.
So your pre-promotion was more about what you learned about the era or what you learned about what may have happened rather than actual excerpts from your book.
Yes.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. Right.
Okay. All right, Michael, does that help you a little bit?
Yeah, a little, because, you know, the one I'm working on, there's, well, yeah, a number of different localities that it takes place in, and it spans a long time period.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that would help. That was why I was also interested in the illustrations,
Right.
pictures, because it would.
So those illustrations or pictures that you might have that won't, you can't put in the book or whatever, those are awesome to put up on Facebook. People love that kind of stuff. Just putting up, a picture of what the river looked like at that time, because my book is close to a river that we have here in Shiawassee County. So it's the Shiawassee River. Tidbits about the river and how it was named and who first found it and things like that. Those kind of tidbits people love to hear about.
So building interest about the bigger picture rather than specific pieces drawn from your book.
Yes.
You found
definitely.
that works well for you.
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. Excellent. Lori, you look like you had a question. Yep.
A comment really. It promotes her as a knowledgeable author in that subject and builds
Absolutely.
interest that way. Like we can trust her because she is doing her research. This is not going to be a book that is not well researched. So yeah, they were good posts. I saw them.
Yeah. And one thing I did find a couple of years ago while I was developing course content for online was that information, whether text or whatever, off of a government website is public information. You
Right.
own it because our taxes paid for that research.
Right. Well, that's why so many authors will go to the Census Bureau to find out information about people that they write about in their historical works, because it's a verified source and you don't have to pay royalties for it.
Right. Yeah. So fortunately, there's a lot of photos of Ellis Island in the early 20th centuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Diana, you look pensive in thought. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm actually working while I'm watching.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Multitasking is a good thing. Let's talk about character for a minute, Elizabeth. Who's the character you like most in your writing? And who's the one who you found to be the biggest problem child?
For this particular book, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yes, this particular book. My favorite was, my protagonist is one of the daughters. She's the main character, but her father, Hosea, was the first farming settler. He isn't the main character, but I loved him. I grew to love him even more as I wrote about him. Sounded like he had a very solid faith-based life. He definitely had some quirks about him that I was able to insert. Sounded like he was adventurous, sounded like he wanted to travel, and his family were dragged along back then. Dragged along, you know,
Right.
just because that's how it was back then. My problem child, as I was researching, I found a title or a character, a young boy was with this family, and I had no idea how he got with the family. That's accurate research. His name was Alexander Stevens, and he didn't fit the name. I didn't know why he was in the research that I kept finding, so I made him up, made up why he was there.
Okay.
And that he wasn't such a problem child, except for he was in the book. I have him as an orphan that became an orphan in the amongst the Indians, and they took care of him, adopted him. So because of that, when he came into the family, he couldn't speak English at all. In fact, he wouldn't speak at all. That was just my made up something.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to almost put him in without, I wasn't sure if I should make him deaf or have some kind of hearing issue, that's why he wasn't speaking. So it was kind of a different thing to try to fit him in without him talking.
Yeah. How do you write a character without dialogue?
Yes.
That's a very particular challenge. How did you finally resolve it?
I had his actions speak louder than his words, and he was very faithful to stay by all the men as they were working, and was a huge help. Like, he was a huge helper, and they just started to appreciate his presence. And in the book, he does significant things to help the family, only because he's used to the area, he's used to the primitive ways of living, and he knew how to cope with that.
Okay, so, I'm hooked. Just because of that character description alone, I'm going to read this book.
Oh, thank you.
I'm character driven, so I love when I get introduced to a person that I normally wouldn't see in real life, that has all these little tiny facets that puts them together, but puts them together in a very unique way that's not normal or, something we're used to seeing every day. So just based on that alone, I am absolutely going to buy your book.
Oh, cool. Question. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, it's going to go in the TBR pile that's now 187 titles tall.
I understand.
Mine too.
This is really super interesting. And when the TV studio reopens again, I will have you on my TV show. I do a weekly program that spotlights independent authors. So we will definitely have you into the studio when life gets back to normal again. And we'll talk about that more in depth. Yeah, absolutely. That would be super fun. So Diana just sent me a chat. She says she's loving this, but she had to leave work calls. So she apologizes for bailing early, but she's going to send you an email, Elizabeth, about picking up your book.
Awesome.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions, Michael, Lori? No. Okay. Then, okay, the last two questions. I'm trying to ask this of everybody because whenever I meet authors, these are my go-to questions because I never get the same answer twice. It's fabulous. Are you a plotter or a pantser? And do you write digital or analog?
I am a pantser, definitely. Although the more I get into writing, and each book seems to be harder to do that, just because you sometimes lose your plot as you're going. But I am definitely a pantser. I sit down and I have had chapters that came out like I was like, where did that come from? And I don't want to lose that type of creativity. To me, that the plotting and being specific about it just just loses that creativity too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely a pantser. But at the same time, after my 5th book, I realized how important it is to plot. So I probably will be maybe a mixture of the two.
So maybe you'll end up being a hybrid author. Yeah. There are a lot of hybrid authors in our circles. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then digital or analog, which is your preference?
Analog, I think. I sell much better than real books.
No, I mean your writing process. Do you longhand or do you type? Do you use software? Sorry. Do you use software? Do you just use Word files? Do you write? I just saw a clip today with Neil Gaiman. He writes in notebooks, of all things. No. Notebooks.
No, I write in Word usually, although I have debated on getting into Scrivener and trying that for my next couple books. I've heard that helps a little bit on the formatting issue. Formatting for me is the worst. I hate formatting my books.
It's a challenge for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. I swear you get to that point, that's like my biggest headache of writing a book.
Well, it's one of the things that I do for a living, so if you ever need some help, you just call me and I'll do what I can to help you out in that respect.
I do have a friend that does it too, and I just pay her extraordinarily well because I love not having to worry about that process.
It makes it a lot easier when you don't have to worry about it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Michael and Lori, any last questions before we wrap up our thing? I know Elizabeth needs to get back on the road and go to a wedding, so I don't want to keep her too long. Any questions?
Oh, I got lots of questions, but most of them don't pertain to this.
Yeah, okay.
We all do, Michael. We all do.
Yeah. Why is the sky blue? Why is air colorless?
Yeah.
What are we all doing here?
Yeah. Okay, we'll have that conversation in another episode. So this is The Year the Stars Fell, Elizabeth Wehman. Newly released, a brand new baby, just sent out into the wilds in the last week or so, right? Awesome.
She's still having colic.
Yeah, I get that. So your website again, Elizabeth?
www.elizabethwehman.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, stopping the road trip to take some time to talk to us here. Thanks, Michael, Lori, and Diana for coming tonight and joining us for this. And watch for the replay to be posted tomorrow, usually in the morning sometime on our YouTube channel, and then also we'll post it on the virtual Indie Book Fest Facebook page as well. We have one of these going every day from now until the 27th of June, and we're giving away books and we're giving away gift cards to bookshops. So jump on to the Facebook page, check it out, join the fun. Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Michael. Bye, Lori.
Bye.